Hi, today's good person to know. I have the wonderful Ramaa Sharma who works for the BBC, and I'm so privileged and honoured because she's invited me into the BBC studios, and this is it. Ramaa, I hope you don't mind, but I wanted to ask you some questions about how you got your job here.
So I started off as a broadcast assistant for a local radio station that was actually about 300 miles from where I lived. I was in Stoke-on-Trent. There was no way on earth as a graduate the BBC were going to, well, at the time I felt there was no way they were going to let me in the door with no experience. So this job came up, it sounded great, I did a good interview, and then I moved up to Stoke-on-Trent and was a broadcast journalist, reporter, presenter for the 2.5 years I was there.
What was your foundation like so that you could get a job like this to begin with?
You know, good, comprehensive. I mean, again, my mother would probably get lots of mentions here, but she kind of appealed to get me into the best school, me and my brother, to get us into the best schools in the borough, even though they were, you know, an hour away from where we lived. So that, I think that helps. A good school helped. I went to a very regular university because at the time I didn't have somebody to tell me, oh, Ramaa, you know what, you're quite good at, you know, at kind of academic subjects, so aim really high and go to Oxford or go to Cambridge. So I just went to a university that gave me a journalism degree because that's what I knew I wanted to do. That said, I don't have any complaints because I think the uniqueness that I bring to the BBC is because I come with a different outlook, with a different upbringing, with a different way of looking at the world. That's what I bring, and that's why I hope that there's lots more, regardless of whether you're Asian or black or whether you're working class, whatever part of society you're in, that you know, we need that diversity in the workforce for that reason, not for tokenism. I think where it was hard for me, when you're quite young and when I started off in the organisation, I felt intimidated because I didn't sound like everybody else. My view of the world was so different. My ideas were so different. So it needed a lot of courage that I had to have, or I had to be encouraged by my peers to bring forth. To be able to, you know, be confident enough to say, no, actually, this is what we should be doing. So,
would you say that was your unique selling point?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that and not being afraid to work really hard. There's no shortcuts.
What advice would you give to somebody wanting to work in the environment that you do?
So I was very entrepreneurial. Like, I love what you're doing. You know, you've got an idea and you're just doing it, or you've come up with something and you're tapping on the doors of people who are prepared to listen, and you present it to them. That's exactly what I did. I had ideas, I sought out the people that I wanted to work for, and I presented to them. As it happens at the BBC, I went through a formal interview process, but you know, I remember my first work experience position. I was 15 years old. I wanted to see if I wanted to be a journalist. I went to the Asian Age newspaper. It was in Edgware at the time, and the editor said to me, oh, what do you want? You know, and I think up until then, most of the work experience students were making teas and coffees and maybe shadowing and maybe doing photocopying, potentially. You know, forgive me if that's inaccurate, but that's what it sort of came across to me. And he said, what do you want to do? And I said, look, I want to know if I want to be a journalist, and I want to write, and I want to report, and that's what I want to do. So he put me right down in the copy desk. He sat me next to the editor. Wow. And the editor sent me to the House of Commons, and I reported on Tony Blair, I reported on Southall, which is, you know, where I grew up. I reported on a whole bunch of with bylines in this international newspaper when I was 15. So the point is, it wasn't that somebody handed that to me on a plate. It was actually saying, this is what I want to do, and not being afraid of that, and not being afraid that you'll make mistakes. It's okay, you know, dust yourself off, pick yourself up and carry on. But
and how do you do that, though? How do you dust yourself off and pick yourself up?
That is hard. There's no bounds about it. It gets better as you get older and you get better sense of perspective. I have to say, I know I beat myself up a lot when I was in my early years, especially if you do have, you know, I guess strict parenting as well. It comes with a territory that you might feel a little bit more emotionally vulnerable.
Yeah.
But you know, have faith in yourself, and try to be kind to yourself, and realize that every single person in the world, regardless whether they're CEOs of companies or business experts, they make mistakes. But the difference between successful people and the people who don't get very far is they learn from them, they evaluate for them, how do I do it differently, and get up and do it again.
Would you say perseverance was the absolute key here?
Yeah, it was perseverance, and a bit of what I've been really blessed with, and why I've stayed at the BBC for as long as I have, is that I work with some of the smartest and most intelligent and wonderful people. So if there was some kind of tension I was getting in other parts of my life, I had this amazing support system who completely validated my courage and my choices that I made. If I was to go get any retaliation from any other corner, I knew I could support myself by other means. So I think that's it. I think sometimes when you trailblaze or you want to do something differently, there will be people that will think otherwise. If you in your hearts of hearts think, but I think this is a good idea, but I think this is meaningful, and yes, it means I have to work odd hours, or yes, it means I have to travel, or yes, it means, if you really believe that, and then if someone you trust with your whole heart believes it too, then you've got to do it. One of the reasons I love my current job, so I'm the social media editor at the World Service, is that I feel that digital and social is an equalizer. It doesn't matter whether you're rich or poor or whoever you are in society, you've probably got a mobile phone or you've got access to the internet, even if it's free via the library. We all have access to that. And everybody's equal in that playing field. So being able to connect with audiences and share valuable information, I think, is a privilege. For me, I think it's very important for us to offer more than just a push service. So historically, as a broadcaster, we tell and we don't do anything else, right? We tell you the news, or we broadcast the news, or we present the news. Whereas if I think social media is about a dialogue, so we present the news, but we're looking for feedback, and what do you think of that? And can you provide us alternative angles, or what have we missed? So how can we open up the process so we create the widest possible picture on a story or a situation or an event?
How does somebody work with the BBC for
we work with various people in various different capacities, right? We have apprenticeships, we have training schemes, we co-host events that are journalism events like the one that we met at. There's a plethora of partnerships. It just depends on what it is that you want to do. There's a journalism scheme that's still running that is open to anyone. You don't have to have a bachelor's in journalism or anything. You just apply and you just do a really good application. If I give you one tip that I can give, is that anybody who goes onto those applications, please make a proper effort on your forms. I mean, I've seen some of the forms that come in and I'm just baffled at some people not really making much effort on the form, and obviously equally some people make great efforts, but actually that's your first step in the door. Take these forms seriously, they are looked at very thoroughly, and apply. And that's one approach. You apply for a trainee scheme. The other approach is if you meet somebody you like the sound of, and again in the same way that you did, say, can I shadow you, can I speak to you, get some tips from them. And then you might get work experience, and if you're liked, you might be put on a casual contract, and if that goes well, then they might offer you a contract or a permanent contract. Those are options. And then obviously just looking at the jobs website and applying for stuff. The more diverse in every way, the better. And I really want to emphasize that we don't mean just race when we talk about diversity. It's age, it's everything. And so, there's often been people who've been dentists before but have always wanted to do journalism, and then they apply and they get in because they bring some life experience, they bring a different output.
You're in a leadership role. How are you utilising that to benefit others?
Part of the scheme is that, we develop and learn, and then we also mentor people who we think are aspiring leaders too. They can be men or women. And so my idea is that there are certain things where I feel I need to improve, and I will bring those lessons back to the next, batch of what I would see as emerging leaders.
Who mentored you?
I've had loads. I've been so lucky. I've had informal and formal mentors. A chap called Ed Sketch, who's one of my mentors. I've had lots, and I still have lots. And that's also another reason why I think it's really important to mentor, because it's been life-changing for me.
What value has it helped you in your career and in your life?
So I think it goes back to that point. Do you remember when I was talking about obstacles that have happened or conflicts that have happened, there have been those times when I've had to make really hard decisions, which would have meant that other people that I care about or love would have been against me or not receptive to my ideas. And that's when your mentor can offer an objective view on it, because you can get caught up in the emotion, you can get caught up in the problem, but your mentors can help shine an objective light on the situation that is neither your perspective or somebody else's perspective, and just help widen your kind of thinking. I think that's been a really valuable, and an empathetic ear. If you find someone you really like the sound of, or you think they might understand me, or ask them, and what's the worst that can happen? They'll say no, but do absolutely seek mentors.
Your top 5 tips in life?
It's so cliched, but it's
definitely.
so...
But if it works for you, it's perfect.
Yeah, you've got to find your song, right? You've got to find that thing that really, makes your gut excited and makes you feel alive when you're doing it. And sometimes it might be more than one. Like I love fitness too. I'm a personal trainer as well. So, there's a thing that gets you excited. You've got to find that thing, and you've got to make sure that most of your life is spent doing that thing. Do something that helps yourself and helps others. So helps yourself either makes you really, really happy and gets you up in the morning, but also helps others. And I think that's beautiful, and I think actually it could apply to anything that you do. Be prepared to work hard. Self-evaluate. Like, it's easy to blame others for things that are going wrong or things that are not working, but can you be prepared to take a really hard look at yourself and say, well, and that's not the same as criticizing yourself, right? That's just like, oh, I got that response from that person. Was that because they're stressed out? So I guess that's empathy. So self-evaluate and be empathetic. So was that because they're having a bad day, or this is what's going on with them? Or is it because you're having a bad day and you came across really intense and really harsh and whatever? So self-evaluate, be empathetic, and look after yourself.
What would be your 5 top tips to securing the role that you want to do?
Research it like crazy. Like what is it that you want to do? Like really understand that area, that project. I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example. I don't know, say if you wanted to be a science reporter, do you understand the latest science developments? Do you understand what it means to be a reporter? Do you have all the skills necessary? Like, there's a long list that you should try to exhaust so you feel really confident in your subject matter, right? Because why would they take you seriously if you're not actually know your stuff? Really seek out those opportunities. So there may be the obvious job advertisements, or there may just be who's hiring for those kinds of jobs. If nobody's hiring, who's doing those jobs right now, and who could potentially be hiring, right? So if it was a science job, then go say, can I spend some time with a science editor and understand their working environments, talk to them openly about, oh, do you think there'll be jobs opportunities here? Is this an expanding department? Is this a shrinking department? Is there anywhere I can be useful? If you're in social and digital, you're hugely useful to us right now, because we're desperately, as an industry, trying to grow in these areas. So do you have special skills you can bring to that project, which would be a part of your pitching process? Have the gumption to turn up and really impress them with a great presentation or a great idea, and really make an effort in that point, because that's the time you've got to impress them. Just be good at your stuff and be talented in your craft. Like, if you don't have that to offer, then get good at it, right? You can't be offered these great jobs if you haven't got experience in those areas, or you don't know what you're doing. Please aspire to be at organizations like the BBC. I know generally we have a spirit of entrepreneurship in our community, and we have lots of businesses, and we are good at medicine and all of these things, and that's all fine. And if that's what you want to do, then that's fine. But I almost feel like don't neglect the kind of social sciences, or, the public services and all of these areas, because that's where you can really make a difference in society. That's when your contribution will be really valued, it'll be more than a paycheck. And aspire to aim high, believe that you can be at the top of these organizations.